Well, there is no tomorrow for your Minnesota Wild. We know that much. It is indeed Game 6 tonight right here on the Fan. All the action beginning probably between 8:30 and 8:45. Emergency Louie to help us, I guess, prepare for this game and to figure out what needs to happen for the Wild. Luigi, if you had a prescription list where you said, here's from a personnel or a lineup standpoint, here's the things I'd like to see done, which doesn't necessarily mean it has to be done, but that you'd like to see done, because that's the big question for everybody. What's on that list for you tonight to help the Wild even this series 3-3?
I guess there'd be maybe two things for sure. I'd like to see Talbot play, and I'd also like to see Bukestad play. Now, where he fits him in, he's been watching film. He's got a bigger group of guys to work with there, and they might have some opinions as to where Bukestad would fit perfectly. But I think that's been something that has been missing, is his ability to score goals or generate some offense, which gives them a little more depth doing that. And I do believe that Talbot should have been used by what we said on the radio all the time. So, after going 16 games and getting points in 16 games straight,
sure,
I would have used him.
Is there a point where, though, by not playing him as long as I think now he hasn't, I don't think he's been in the nets for 2 weeks, that it actually is too late in this series to go with him, and in fact you could run into the hazard of a guy being a bit on the rusty side, or do you think that's overrated involving a professional goaltender?
Well, I don't think it's overrated, but we don't know. But at the same time, we don't know how Fleury would play tonight either. So what unknown do you want to grasp onto? That's the key. Is right now, do you want to try something different? I know that it would have been easier had they tried it 2 games ago or something, sure, when they had the opportunity, but they haven't done it. So now it's up to them to figure out and see what they see. What concerns me is the goals that were let in, especially the third and fourth goal for St. Louis. It almost felt like Fleury was a little tentative, especially handling the puck behind the net. And Brian Boucher, who's a goaltender in his past, and he played in the NHL and is a very good commentator, I was watching their telecast, and he was saying it throughout the game. He said, I think that St. Louis got an edge here because of the way Bennington's been handling the puck in his own zone, getting the pressure relieved quickly by getting it to his defenseman. And I don't think, Fleury's doing as good a job at it. That's what he said. And, he proved to be right. And I'm wondering if that tentativeness, because Fleury's always handled the puck a lot and handle it well, but when you're not as assured, maybe you don't handle it as often or as quickly, and you're somewhat hesitant to take a gamble. And that's sort of what I saw that game. And that's why I'm wondering, how would he react tonight if he's in the net compared to how does Talbot react? I don't know in either case. But I do know that Talbot had proved to be really good before the end of the season for the last month. And so I just think he warranted an opportunity to play.
Emergency Lou Nanne to help prepare you for Game 6 tonight. Wild having to win to extend this series to 7. I think you raise a good point that there is a risk either way. I mean, you could say, well, to ask a player to play after being off this long, you don't know what he's going to give you. But it's not like you've gotten greatness from Fleury. And it's interesting because I guess you're maybe not surprised at this, but the head coach has evaluated his play, Fleury's play, as very good in this series. I think you've previously, before Game 5, said, I wouldn't say he's the reason they've lost games, not necessarily the reason he's won games, somewhere in between. But certainly there's been enough concern, I think, that you've expressed at others, especially now, even after Game 5, to say there may be a risk to keeping Fleury in tonight for Game 6 as well.
We have to remember that, and I think all of us, even coaches who want to support their goaltenders, have a tendency to say, well, our goaltender's played well. He's really stopped these pucks. What's a goaltender supposed to do? He's supposed to stop the puck. You pay him to stop the puck. And you don't pay him to let in bad goals. And if he's just stopping the pucks that he's supposed to stop, and making a few saves that he isn't, that you expect a goaltender that you're putting in a net during the regular season, let alone the playoffs, to stop shots that are hard to stop, not the mundane ones. Otherwise, you'd have American League goaltenders playing in the net or East Coast League
Sure.
guys in there. You have to know that you're relying on your goaltender to reach above the norm. That's what you expect from good goaltenders, and especially in the playoffs.
Let's go back to Game 5, because I don't think we've talked since the game took place. Evison, after the game, made it appear that the goal that bugged him the most was the one that tied it late in the period. The Wild, of course, had gained a 2-1 lead with Kaprizov getting back-to-back power play goals, and that's the goal that stuck with him. Now, you still have a whole period, and it's a tie game, which means you still have time, obviously, to win the game. Was that the goal that bugged you the most? What was your thinking at that point going into the third period?
St. Louis was basically looking to lose. They were out of the game. The Wild had complete control of that game. That second goal was a fluky goal. It bugged me because it was fluky.
Sure.
And it was not even a try at a deflection in front of the net. It hit somebody's stick and went in, and it's unfortunate that the way Fleury was moving, that it trickled through the center of his legs, and just the whole seemingly play from when it started to when it ended up in the net was something that took the wind out of the sails of the Wild, in my estimation. It gave St. Louis a lot of lift and some momentum going in the third period. However, to that point, they were dead, done, and gone. They weren't in that game. The Wild were controlling it completely. They just weren't able to score.
Right.
Now going into the third period, you still got a tie game, and you're still in good position because you're playing well. And I think what I think happened, is a tentativeness evolved. And I really believe that's what happened in the third goal. Because if you look at the puck where it was, right behind the net, Fleury normally handles that puck. Middleton's getting in front of the guy that's coming to forecheck, essentially to slow him down without interference, to give the goaltender time to play the puck to the side. The goalie doesn't play the puck to the side. Middleton trying to get in position to slow the guy down. He just goes around him because he can't be taken down, gets to the puck, centers it, puck's in the net.
You mentioned you'd like to see maybe a couple of changes, including the goaltender for tonight. Micheletti, when we had him on yesterday, said, look, he admits that, he wants to make wholesale changes, which is probably not realistic at this point. But I thought he made a decent point. He said, if the only changes you make are fourth line related, I'm kind of bored with that. He said, I think you need to mix up some lines. You need to make some changes more fundamental. He, too, thinks there should be a goalie change. But leaving that aside, he wants it to be more than the cosmetic changes on the fourth. He's thinking, look, this is it. You can say, well, you don't want to overreact or panic. Fact of the matter is, you've seen, as Russo wrote about today, the Blues head coach make a number of changes that seem to help his team. So is this the time to go beyond just making one or two minor changes on the fourth line? Do you agree?
Well, I would agree if I thought that we had some lines that really could be affected by the change. Let's start with the first line. You're not going to touch that line. There's no reason to touch that line. Okay, so you got Hartman, Kaprizov, and Zuccarello playing together. You're not going to change your big line, the Grief line, even though they weren't as productive, but they still had, it's not like these guys have not played hard and played well, and you could expect something to happen from them. Are you going to try and change the look of that line? What are you going to gain from, how are they productive? They're productive through their forechecking ability and their strength and creating havoc and getting goals around the net. So realistically speaking, there's nobody you're going to insert there that should give you a better opportunity than that line the way it exists. It's not like they've had a bad playoff. They played a lot of good games. They set the tone in a lot of games. They just haven't produced as much as they normally produce. But going into the series or going into the season, were you asking the Grief line to be a productive line or a big, strong checking line?
True.
So we had the benefits of them generating offense when we didn't even expect it. So you're not going to change that look, because that still gives you what you need there. So where's the change going to come? The change could come on the third line. You got Boldy and Fiala that play a lot of times like Zuccarello and Kaprizov. That's what happened down the stretch. Now, do you want to split those two guys up? Who's going to generate more there? So the only guy you could split up is your centerman, Goudreau, who's been pretty solid. Who's going to? You want to gamble? You want to gamble on that? No. You got to go with the girl that brought you here. I mean, this is what you're looking at. So where are we not getting any offense, but they're not even getting much ice time, but maybe generate or change the mix a little bit?
Sure.
Would be Bukestad, who had a very strong finishing 2 weeks to the season. He was producing in that position. He was giving us a little offense. So you make the fourth line even more dangerous than it was because it hasn't really been dangerous with scoring opportunities. That's where you need scoring opportunities. And the only other place you're going to look outside of goal we've already talked about, the only other place you're going to look is defense. Now, I'm not watching the film like the coaches are. If they're detecting something that's not not up to par, then they should make a defensive change there. But I don't know.
Well, what about that's the other name that comes up, that it's clear that he's just not healthy. There's certain things he can't do. So why try to get more out of him than he's capable of giving at this point?
I wouldn't. I would make that change.
Yeah.
If he's not, I don't know his physical condition. They do. Right. And if he is suffering from something that's not allowing him to play with the kind of physicalness he should be playing with, the kind of shooting he should be playing with, then they should make that change.
What do you need to see early tonight? I mean, the stat that's often repeated, Louis, is in this series, the team that has scored first has literally won every game. We've seen some back and forth in a couple games, but that's what has stood up as the stat. So does that by definition mean the Wild need to score first in this game if they're going to be taken seriously and put a little fear into the Blues?
We hope so. I think you can never give up on not scoring the first goal, but it certainly has proven to be the indicator of who's going to win the game and the other ones previous. What we have to see first, two things. Is there a goaltending change? And if there is, how's the goaltender reacting under the onslaught that's going to come right at the beginning? The Blues are going to put a lot of pressure on, I would expect, at least attempt to, because they're in their home building, they smell blood. The crowd's going to be going nuts. They're going to be piped up and really pumped up. And so how is the goaltender handling the puck? How is he reacting to shots on net? That's what you have to look at, especially if it's Talbot. Is he playing with confidence? Does he look like he's incapable of coming up with a big game? And secondly, how is the Wild responding? I think expecting all this, the best way to respond is the Wild having puck control. Something that they've gone through periods of having, and sometimes they don't. If they can control the puck and make plays and throw it around, right now, even though St. Louis is at home, the pressure of wanting to close it out at home is being felt by the players. They're excited. They're in a position to move on, and you could tell they're going to be ramped up at the beginning.
You are legendary for your superstitious proceedings, the way you go about business of when you were general managing and now even in a position where you're watching the team. I've observed that from time to time, as far as way once, in fact, as the Middle East, when we were both there for Hockey Day, Minnesota. I've seen it. I've seen you leave a room, come back into a room, then change the entry point to the room where you sit, etc. So do you have a strategy for tonight about it's sort of trying to mix it up from where you were or how you watched Game 5, for example?
Well, it's not a strategy. I have different things to try. I've tried so many different ones, I'm getting tired. But, where I sit, whether I change the channel back and forth between, I have the good fortune of having Slingbox, so I have both telecasts on. I can have one on the Slingbox, one on the other. If the one's not going good, then I go to the other one. But I don't know. Nothing seems to be working for me lately, so maybe I should just go out and have dinner someplace and do like I did in Toronto when I didn't go to the game. And I said, just tell me,
Tell me the score later.
I came back. I was walking outside the arena in Toronto, and some fan, yeah, what's the matter, Nanny? Can't you take it? I said, what do you mean can't take what? And he told me the score was 2-1 for them, for Toronto. So then I knew I couldn't do any worse because we were already down. So then I went back to the building and we won 3-2. So
maybe that's the
I don't know.
That's the formula. Is Francine? Is Francine as superstitious as you, or do you drive her nuts? How does she handle that when you go through all these various routines? She's used to it by now, obviously, but how does she handle it?
You said the exact words that she said last game. You drive me nuts. No, she's very, very aware of when I'm doing things, even when I try to hide them. She says, I saw that. So she, after this long as in August, she picks up on everything.
No surprises at this point. Luigi, thanks for the bonus time today. Enjoy the game
I lost you there.
And tonight, and we'll talk soon. Thanks, Luigi.